So just so everyone knows, now the session is also being recorded, so anything that pops up or any cameras that come on, that's recorded and then supplied back to you all. If anyone's not okay with that, do just say. But for now, we're gonna crack on. So here we have a blank Illustrator file. For everyone, we're just gonna create a brand new one. So when you open up Illustrator, you should have this sort of screen. You won't have all of these. These are my most recent projects that will be available to you once you've got some up and going. These are a bunch of presets that we have for window sizes and layouts for Illustrator to providers. Really, has everyone got a window something like this? Looks like everyone's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to create new, or go to File and New, and we're going to create a brand new document. One thing I went through last week that I should reiterate here as well is Illustrator is used mostly as screen based. It is also used for print, but not as much as one or two of the other Adobe softwares. It's used for web a lot. A lot of its dimensions and abilities really suit for sort of web design and creating assets for web design. There isn't motion in Illustrator, but you can create assets for film and video to those scales, art and illustration, and also with web design, you also have mobile app design. Really, this just changes the windows and options that we have, and the scale at which we're creating assets. We're going to create a piece on a 1080p canvas, so that's how many pixels. That's HD, really, is 1080p, and it's a web standard for websites. It's a standard width for a website because it's the full width of a desktop screen at the moment. That's the standard resolution. It's 1080 pixels wide. So if you go onto web, and then we should find 1920 by 1080, this one here. We'll give it a click, and it will change these presets and all these settings to what we've selected. It will have the width there and the height there. We're working in pixels, orientation of a portrait or landscape, and the amount of artboards that we're working with. As I said earlier, we're going to work on artboards and why they're important, and also we're going to use them for our next little brief as well. So this bleed here is also quite useful for print if we're going to print something off, and then there's a certain amount of bleeding edge between the side of a screen, the side of the paper and the side of the artwork that we're creating that needs cutting off. That'll be the bleed. And there's some advanced options that we don't need to go into at the moment. So select 1080. These are all preset, and then create, and we'll have our first page. You should have everything pop up like this. You may not have these windows open, but that's because that's my settings on Illustrator. We're going to need these, so I'm going to walk through how to get to them. But does everyone have Illustrator open? Everyone who I'm not helping towards the end, everyone have Illustrator open with this kind of setup, this kind of window? Yes, yeah, yes. Yes. Great stuff. So we'll hop back in. What we're then going to do, if everyone has the map ready that I supplied earlier, have it ready in your Finder if you're on Mac, or just File Explorer if you're on Windows, and you can simply drag it in and plonk it right into the page. And once you've downloaded it, when I click create new, a blank tab opens. That's it, nothing on it. You click create new. So does this open but it's completely blank? This sort of window. Pardon me. Sorted out. Great stuff. Problem solving. Right. So once everyone's got our maps in, it'll automatically be selected. That's what these blue lines, this cross is. That means that's the object that we have in hand at the moment. What we're going to need is the align window, this window right here. You probably won't have it open, and that's fine. We go up to window and then align. If I click it, it will hide mine, but if you click yours, it'll pop it open. So we should all have the align window open, and then we're going to center it horizontally, sorry. So that'll center it this way, and then that'll center it that way. Please let me know if everyone's there, and we'll have a lovely centered map. What it centers to is here in this bottom corner. You can change what your object is aligning to. You can press to there or there. Are you taking control, Destiny? Everything okay there, Destiny? That's absolutely fine. Nothing's changed on here. Almost took control of the presentation. Very good. So if everyone's there and everything's aligned and everything's okay, we'll keep this window sort of out of the way. We're sort of done with that. We'll click on our map, and then we go up here. We want to lock it in place so that we can't move it around while we're creating our vectors and our text and everything. So we go up to the toolbar at the top again, and we go object. We scroll down to lock, and we're going to lock the selected, so lock the selection. You can lock multiple objects at once as long as you have them all selected, and now they're locked into place. So now would be a good time for me to go over the layers tab. That should automatically just be up here, this big empty space, but at the top it has your layers. Has everyone got that? I made the map the whole page because I made the map the whole page. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, don't worry about that. It's more the scale of it is more to just keep it in line, and so we don't have to resize anything. But if you have, that's absolutely fine. Great stuff. So your layers tab up here on the right, you'll have your layer 1, and in it will be what we've created. It will be this linked thing. That's just our map. Because it's something that we've dragged in, it's trying to link to something. Don't worry about that. We can double click, or I believe we can press enter. No, we can double click and rename it map. And then that map is named map, and it's locked in, and we're about ready to start creating. A useful part of the layers tool is we can, if we're creating with multiple assets and loads of stuff going on the screen, we can hide what we need to hide to see anything that's hiding behind it or in front. We can also change the order, because how layers work is they're essentially sheets on top of each other. Each asset is a sheet that lays on top of each other, and that allows you to create essentially just create assets that have images on top of one another, or vectors on images, or anything like that. Once you put something behind it, it's not interactable, and you have to either hide it or move it in front. Anything at the top, it goes top down, so once there's something below this, it'll be below it on screen and we won't be able to see it, but you'll see that in action soon. Also, we went to object and lock a second ago to lock this. What we could do is just have had it selected and then lock it with our padlock here, and then that unlocks it and it's selectable again. So we can select it again, lock it, hide it, lock it, any of the above. We can also create folders for layers, so we can keep everything mega organized, but our thing's not going to get super complicated, so we don't really need to do that. But if you do, you can hide the whole folder, which we don't want to do. So our map is now locked, and what we want to do is start creating our spaces, our areas, our text. So we're going to need the pen tool. So up here on the left is the all-important toolbar with all of our object creation and movement and transforming and zooming and creating. Also fill and no fill in all these parts. So we're going to go to the pen tool, which has a small drop down if we select it, but we don't need to. Just click on the pen tool, and these pink alignments, hopefully you've got them when you go onto the edge of an object. They're extremely helpful and a useful part of the whole Adobe suite to get everything and keep everything in line. They allow you to clip objects onto the edges of things, but if you don't want them, you can go to view, and you can change what your cursor snaps to. There's lots of options, and just play an experiment with them and you'll get used to them all. So back on the pen, we're going to want to create, say, this green grassy area here by McDonald's. We're going to click, and then it'll automatically drag it for us, so you don't need to drag the mouse. We just click through to create the shape, and then to close the shape off, we click on the first point, and then that's it. That's our first object, our first piece of grass, and then it's our own piece. We can move it around, we can rotate it if we go to the edges of it. If you're rotating, or if you're scaling objects up or down, if you hold the shift key, it'll keep everything in line. If you let go of the shift key, you can change it. It's much more malleable, but shift holds it like that, and then you can snap it back so you don't actually change anything. The same with rotate. It rotates 45 degrees so that everything's very uniform, but that's holding shift. If not, that's shift, that's loose, that's shift, that's loose. So let's put it back into place. What we don't really want is, we don't want it to be completely blank white, and we don't want it to have this black border. So what we're going to do is we can move it out the way, and down here, these two small squares, this is for the fill of an object, and this is for the stroke. The stroke is the outline, or the outline of text. So we do want a fill for this. Whichever one's on top is the one that we're changing. So if you click on stroke, we're changing stroke. If you click on fill, we're changing fill. If you double click, you get this wonderful color palette window. We can work with all different values. Don't worry too much about these. These are for when you want to get quite precise. This is hexadecimal colour. Some of you may have worked with that before. It's used in code quite a bit. RGB, red, green and blue. And then there's all these wonderful ones. But what we want now is we want the fill colour to be the same as this. We're making quite an accurate map for now. So here, just below halfway down the toolbar, there's the eyedropper tool. If everyone can select the eyedropper tool, and we'll have a little eyedropper. Once we've all got that selected, we can go over to the grass, click the green, and our fill will be that. Also, because we've not selected a stroke with that eyedropper, the eyedropper fills them both generally. So there's no stroke selected on that. We're not creating the stroke from it, so it's got rid of the stroke. Now it's got this red line through it. When we're doing that, we have three options, three smaller squares just below these already very small squares. So the fill, we can actually change it from being a full colour, giving it a gradient, or giving it none. If it has this red line through it, this red diagonal line, then it has no fill or no stroke, depending on which one we're doing. So we can have the fill, or we can cancel it, or we can go back to our previous colour. So we'll put this back into here. So that's the start of our shapes. Should I continue, or should I allow some time for you guys to get shape making, and then I'll go on to text and roads and curvatures? I'll also go through this. Yeah, try to figure it out, but I can't. Align button is grayed out. So if everyone would like to sort of work with that and create some shapes from the map, feel free, and I'll work through this issue of Keras. If anyone else is having any issues at the moment with anything that I've gone through, just put it in the chat. So your align button is grayed out. Is it grayed out here, Keras? Is it grayed out in the actual window drop down? Go on object, it's grayed out. Oh, right. Yes, don't go to object and align. It's window, and then that will come up with the window options. Great stuff. So we'll all go through and create some shapes. I'm going to create the racecourse park. Anything new that you create, it'll retain the last colour that you made or selected. So if you're wanting to change it or create something new with it, you'll have to do that before you create it, or after. You're just going to have to change it. So whilst that's happening, I'll probably create some areas. Are we doing everything on the map, or just the main ones? Really, it's mostly making sure that you get it as accurate as possible. You don't have to do the entire map and make it perfect. This is to make sure that you have every skill under your belt. So if you have a few examples of each function, like using the pen and then a few texts and then a few roads, then it's great. Just as long as I've done it all green. You've done all the green, great. Does it matter if we go over a bit of a word? No, it should be fine. But if you want to create that word afterwards and make it as close to what it looked like before, we'll be able to take that layer that you've created over it and just hide it, and then you can create the text and then show it again. So I'll probably start to do that. That's an extremely useful and quite important part that it took me years to learn, that it's actually really important to stay organized. So this piece of path here, this piece of grass, sorry, that I've created, up here in the layers, you can see which one you've got selected by this little blue box next to whichever one. So you click and it changes. If you're not clicking on anything that's unlocked, then it'll say that you're not on anything. So this, let's say, well, this is this path here, and then it's the top right hand grass. So I'll go top right hand grass. You can name them whatever you want as long as they're useful for reference. Again, this is just something so that we can see that you've got these skills under wraps. So while everyone's creating there, okay. Whilst everyone is creating there, I'm going to share the next brief. We're going to go through it once everyone's got their maps, but I believe it may be useful to, who was it that's created it? To Luke Jackson. So I'll upload it there, and then we'll all go through it. Google Maps. Great stuff. Let's turn back here. No need to worry. What I'm doing now is I'm uploading the next brief, which essentially highlights and is coming off of the stage that you're creating on, or the masking and everything. So keep cracking on, and the brief is essentially just a good point of reference for that. So we're all going to go through it after we've created our maps. So no need to worry, everyone. Hope it's all going good and grand. So what I'm going to go over now is curves, and creating curved spaces. So I'm going to take this grey area as an example. Using the pen tool again, we can create one point, and then we can see where a curve is. There's a curve about there, so we can take our pen a bit further, and then instead of just clicking on the next point, we hold the mouse down and then we drag it, and that allows us to create a point. And this that our mouse is now on is the direction that the rest of the line will go. So point, pull, let go, and then we can keep creating our curves. That one's not very good, is it? Let's go there. And close it off there. Missed a part of this lesson. What parts of the map are we doing? I would say get the main parts down, where sort of the main grey blocks of it and the main grassy areas of it. You can go as detailed as you want to sort of show what skills you've learnt with it, but we're mostly covering the actual functions to make sure that everyone knows how to get through them. So get through the large grey area, the concrete, get some grass areas in, then we're going to get roads, rivers, and then we're also going to apply text and how to apply text boxes to curvature, so that you have, say, the river text going like this. How much have you missed, so that I know whereabouts you are? Do you need help getting set up with it? In the grassy top. Right, brilliant. So a few more areas like that and then start experimenting. Did you just catch the part of how to do curvature and curved objects? Great. So if we can crack on there, we'll create a few more, give everyone some time to create. Let's create this grass. What's this one? This one's here. Center green one. What's this one? This is top center grass. Center grass. Any more? Also, because we're building on top of everything, I'm going to go through another tool that might be useful just as a backing. High up on the toolbar, we've got this shape tool here. If you hold it down, you have the options of these basic shapes, or to create a line segment. We're going to create a rectangle, and we can make it the whole scale of your map. And what we can do is move it out of the way, use the eyedropper tool as we learned earlier. Use the eyedropper and then select the grey area, and I can use that as a backing to create onto. But that's on top of the map now, so I can go back to our layers and just move it below our map. It's not gone below our map. Our rectangle's at the top here, sorry, there we go. So now if we hide our map, we have the grey concrete and we have some grassy areas. Which grassy area would this be? That would be top left hand grass. Let's have a look at how everyone's doing. For the next task, when we select images from pixels, do we need to use generic stuff, or can we use some artistic license? Again, I'll go through the brief at the end, but that's for when we. That's open up to yourselves. Also, Pexels wasn't. That's open up to yourselves. Also, Pexels wasn't. Well, but Pexels is just one quite useful source of free images. Feel free to use your own artwork. You can source it from absolutely anywhere, as long as it's appropriate. And yeah, we're that's when we're going to start creating, and this will be your first sort of expressive piece with Illustrator. So yeah, artistic license is available. That's absolutely fine. Again, we'll go through it shortly. So we're getting through the map quite well, and it seems like no one's having any issues with it. So, brill. So I'm going to show my map. If others have created the rectangle, then I'm going to lock it. And I'm probably going to create the river now. If you do make a point that you don't want, you can press Command Z, and that will cancel out the last point. But if you're on Windows, you can press Control Z, and that will just undo the last one specifically. I'm sure everyone knows how to undo on computers, but that's how the points work in Illustrator. That's quite annoying. Yeah, as well, if that will delete the last one. But if you undo it, then you can also redo it if you do want to do that. I'm being a bit thick. How do I get the color picker? You got it? Great stuff. Do we have to make all the roads or just the main ones? How do you do the curved lines again? I'll go through the curved lines. You don't have to make all of the roads. Make it as detailed as you want and as close as you want. But the main roads should cover it and show that we have it all down. It's also just really good practice to get it going and become a sort of motor function. To do the curved lines again, you press for pen up here, and then instead of clicking one point and then just another point and that being the straight line, we click one point, and then instead of just clicking, we hold the mouse down and then we pull, and that allows us to create our bend. The further out we pull, the larger the curve. Now we can change the angle of the curve. If it's short, it'll be closer to the point that we've just created. So that's how to create the curves. And then if we bend, this will automatically occur to angle everything back out. And that's okay, because you can then just bend that one as well if necessary. How do I make the stroke size bigger? That is a great question. I'll answer now. So I've got this line that I've just created here, this blue line. I'll hide the map. Actually, I'll create a new line for this demo. So we have our pen, and we've created a line, and our line is there. And we can give it a stroke of that grey. So here's our little line. In window, there is actually a whole window dedicated just to the stroke width and scale of the stroke length. So we click on stroke from window, stroke, and then we can change the stroke and transparency of an object. They may come together, they shouldn't do actually. Here's the stroke window, and we can change the weight of the stroke. These drop downs that appear, we don't have to use them. We can go quite specific. We can make it a 7.75 point stroke, and that's how we change the stroke weight. How's that gone? Hope that's gone okay. So if everyone's cracking on with that well so far, what I will start now is how to input and then type text onto our map. So I'm going to bring up our map. I'm going to bring our map to the top. We don't have to do this, this is just for my example. So if everyone's okay to watch how we input text, just above halfway down on the toolbar on the left we have a large T. That is the type tool. We have three options. We can either start a generic type that can be placed anywhere and it'll type horizontally. We can type on a path, so that'll be on a line or on the edge of a box, either on the inside or outside, or we can select to then go on the edge of something but type down, so the letters cascade downwards. We're just going to do a generic type for now. We'll go here and we'll type Little Chester. We're going to create Little Chester. So there's our first bit of type. It's an object in itself now, but it's not a but it's a piece of type. It's a vector, so it can be resized. At the moment it's not an image, it's not flat, it's still completely editable, which is extremely important as it'll never pixelate while we edit it. So we can resize it just like we can an image, but it will never pixelate like a pre-made image. We can zoom in and it'll be a perfect curve, but we don't want it that big. So we'll go back to it, and on window we can start changing the type settings of it. Right down at the bottom of window, nearly at the bottom, there's another drop down in type for changing character settings, and that's what we're going to change. Hopefully everyone's there. Changing the character. I believe this is some form of Helvetica, so that should be fine. So we have the option to change our font, change the weight and give it underline depending on what fonts come with that, depending on what comes with the font. And then we have text size, line spacing top to bottom, kerning, letter spacing, and subtraction of kerning. So right now we just need it a bit bigger. What is recommended is try not to just resize the text like this, as it then becomes ununiform. If bit early, but if a client or yourself are creating a project and their guidelines say that their font, their wording on the piece of work that they're doing, or your personal guidelines on your own brand, etc., they say that you need it to be, like your header has to be 18 points, then it's set. Then you're not resizing it or making it anything like this. Because if you do, it'll change the font size to whatever you just scaled it to, that will be ununiform, and then the whole brand will just not look good. So if we put Little Chester over Little Chester, 18 is nearly there, so maybe we'll scale down. 14's too small, so we can click in the box and maybe go 16 and then press enter. That looks about right. So we're going to change the font. Illustrator and the whole Adobe suite, they all come with a preset of fonts. Most of them are web safe, so that means you can create something here and then it will be designed for web as well, and the web won't be missing it. So we can also type in here, if we're searching for a font, Helvetica. Maybe bold. Is bold too much? Bold looks a bit too much. So we've got a little Chester here, and the the character spacing, sorry, is a lot heavier on these. So we're going to increase that to 100 is too little and 200 is too much. So again, we'll try something in between. Maybe 125, maybe 115. That looks a bit closer. Can't seem to find the character window. So that'll be in window, and if you go all the way down to type, and it should be in the drop down to the right hand side of type. Just here. Let me know if that's popped it up. Great stuff. Also, I'm not going through any of them in this session as we're getting through the basics of it, but there are shortcuts to pop everything up. A lot of the windows have shortcuts going from different tools. They have shortcuts on the keyboard. If you press P on your keyboard, you get the pen. Here's the pen, it's popped up. If you press, I believe, V, it goes back to the pointer. You can also change the order of the layers with some command shortcuts. So if you were to press Command T, it'll show or hide the type window, or Control T if you're on Windows will do the same thing. So when you get things going and you're really in a fast-paced situation, you've got to create assets very quickly. Being able to skip a lot of the mouse movement and just type and not have to move anything too much becomes extremely useful. So that's extremely useful too. So we've got our little Chester. Still doesn't quite look right. I think we'll be okay for little Chester for now. Also, when moving things, if you want to be really precise, you can select it and then use your left, right, up, down keys on your keyboard, and that allows things to be very, very precise instead of moving it around with the mouse. Because then you can select several things and move them simply one point. That does move them depending on how zoomed in you are though, so it's not mega accurate, it's just very useful. Is there a way to group two paths within a layer? You should be able to if you create a new layer. So here on this, you may actually be able to select two. No. So in layers, in the layers bar on the right, or wherever you've moved it, down here at the bottom, you can create a new layer. This little square with a plus sign in it. You press that, and you've got layer 2. Layer 2 is just another layer, just another sheet on top of the previous sheets. And you can put these two, say, and drag them up and put them into layer 2. And now little Chester, the words, and my map are in layer 2. Hopefully that's what you mean. Is that what you mean, Parker? Is that what you're asking? Yes, let me merge two paths into one. So to sort of take this line and connect it to another one that's being made, if this is one curvature, one shape, give it a fill, you should be able to select the end point and then connect them up, and that doesn't merge them, does it? You can group them into one object, but merging the paths, maybe if we create a compound path from it, no. So that's one option, is to have the two that you've created, if they're joined together, or if they're not, and then you can select them both by dragging the mouse over them or selecting them both, and then right click and make a compound path. That creates the object here. You can see in the layers that's created it into one single object. Is that what you'd mean? Try and get to the bottom of it. Merge two paths into one. Hopefully that's what you meant. Great stuff. So we're here and we've got our little Chester. I've hidden my map again, so let's bring it back up. So that's how to create the text and edit it and change it in a simple text area, the automatic text area. But what we may want to do is draw along some sort of curvature. So this east gate is on a very little curvature, but it is one. Or maybe we should use Darwin. So to make sure that this path doesn't get in my way, I'm going to lock it. But what I'm going to do is create a path for this to live on. If we had this whole path and you wanted, if you have this path created, this road, and then you want to use the tool that I'm going to use to create a curved text on it, if you do that, it won't apply it to where you've clicked. It'll apply it to the whole line sort of thing. So what we'll want to do is maybe create, so what I mean is, if we've got this road already created that we've made, and then we click type on it, it'll not apply it to just this area that we want. So what we need to do is create a new shape, a new line to draw on. So we'll just make this curve around Darwin, maybe like that. And then we go up to our type tool, again there. So we have the option of selecting to make it go onto a path, but if you just have the type tool and then go over the path, you can click and it'll fill with the relevant text, whatever text you type. Right now our text is far too large to be seen in this space. This keeps popping up. So click here to type. Can't see it, so if we make the text smaller, you should be able to see it. Where's our typing? Is the curvature too much, maybe? Let's try a new line. Let's try here on the river. So click type, click back onto here. Type, and then there. It's very cut off. We've done something. Is it right? No. Would it be because the layer is under the map layer? It would be exactly because of that. Amazing, amazing work from me. Didn't look at my layers and I'm just typing away, trying to create nothing. So thank you for that. Where's this? Let's put this above that. Keep the map at the bottom and keep it locked. Let's hide the rectangle. Very good. So now we've got this layer on top. Let's hide that. What else is on top? That's on top. Let's move that. So you've got your curvature and then click into it. River Derwent. But I spent so long on that that you've all probably done it. So let's have a look. I want it a bit higher. Maybe rotate it round a bit. Get it as close as possible. So you've got your curvature and then click into it. River Derwent. But I spent so long on that that you've all probably done it. So let's have a look. I want it a bit higher. Maybe rotate it round a bit. Get it as close as possible. Font size to maybe that. There we are. We can move it, we can apply the colour. There we are. So what paths have I created? Let's move the map down again. Round about centre. Main road. Small road left. Little Chester. Main road. We've got the river line. That's the roundabout centre. And that would be small road left centre. We'll call this background. So that's getting there. How's everyone's maps going? Everyone going okay. No one's got the map on top because that's not a good thing to do. Feel like you're almost done. That's great stuff. The actual brief has this listed for submission by 6 PM today. Just put it in the folder that I listed above. I'll probably put the link in again into this chat, but you can keep working on it just to make sure that we can see that all of your skills are down in it and all the functions are down in it. We have a few more things that we're going to go through, but that'll be us creating a new file for it. So everyone get to a point where they're quite happy with what we've covered, and then we're going to cover saving and why, and then we're going to move on to a couple more functions that we didn't cover last week, and then look through the next brief, which is nothing too much to worry about. It's allowing the new skills that we're going to go through to shine through. And if any of you followed the conversation earlier, it's going to let a lot more artistic license in. It keeps filling along. Yeah, if it's filling whilst if you're drawing the lines and then it fills this space that you're drawing, even whilst it's selected, you can go on to fill, make sure that fill's highlighted at the top, and then click none, click no fill. So whilst we're creating this line, it's filling up here quite annoyingly. So you just make sure fill's on top, and then you click none, and it'll empty it out. Hopefully that solved your problem, Luke. There's a little bent arrow to the top right of the stroke, and focus toolbar. I use that when switching back. Great stuff. Luke's on it. Cheers. That's all right. So I'm going to create this Pizza Hut here because it's quite an intricate little vector. I'm going to create a new layer, put it at the top, tip top. Pizza Hut icon. Actually, I'm just going to call it icon. And I'm going to point here. Here, and here, and here, there, not that one, there. Give it a colour. Now that sits on top. Now I'm going to create this knife and fork. Also, one thing that might be useful is as I mentioned, holding the shift key earlier keeps everything uniform. When drawing lines, if you're drawing straight and would like it dead straight, you can just hold shift and it'll draw the line straight up, left, right and down. So now I've got these two. I've done my clipping mask for the next time. I can't figure out how to clip the lines for the roads. Luke, when you've made the line for the road, did you make them as a path, or did you make them as a pen drawn path and then fill them, or did you make them as a line and then give that line weight? Did you give it a? It's not filled, so it's just a large stroke weight. That's it. It needs to have its own space. It needs to be a closed object with a start and then an empty to create a mask with it. So if you wanted to create them, you might have to draw it out. But what you've got already is you should be able to take that line, lower the fill, and then just redraw so that it has that closing line around it. If you know what I mean. So do we have to do the whole map, or are we just showing that we can do each thing? That sounds painful. It's worth it once the mask has got something beautiful and relevant and it all ties together and you've made an amazing piece of work. Where's the submission page? We have to do the whole thing. The latter. We're showing that we can do each thing. There's one more function that I am going to quickly show, and the submissions page, the folder is just here. The last function is I've made these two objects, these two lines, these two whatevers. If you have them both selected, you can then right click and group, and then they are grouped together. They're one object and they move thusly as one, and then you right click and you can ungroup them. That's not a function we covered last week. Extremely useful, and if you can get it in somewhere that's relevant and useful for that, brilliant. So how we're going to save it so that we can view all of the wonderful little vectors and the wonderful little elements that we've all created. This is going to be one to remember. If you're not finished yet, that's absolutely fine. But if you save it like this now, then you've got it saved like this already. So go to File, and we're going to save as. So what we're going to do is save it as your name and map. In Save As, we can select whether to save it as an Illustrator file, an AI up here, that's the extension, and we can change the format here. So that it's editable, we're going to save it as an Illustrator file to start with. So Jevon map. There's only one Jevon, and we're going to save it in the right folder, and then you can transfer it later on. So that's saving it. These are the different save options and properties. One thing I went through last week that might have been a bit much, but I'll go through it a bit this session as well. In all of the Adobe suite, it allows you to save in your version of Illustrator and do something called back compatibility, and that allows you to save it in old versions, and then you can send that to other people who have maybe the previous version because they don't like the new version or what have you. It's just an important thing to know if you're working with someone else, or you're working with someone from another course or someone from another uni and they've not got the same kind of Adobe software. You might have to just have a look at what version you're saving in, but we're saving in your version. I think you'll be on Illustrator 2020, or you might be on Illustrator CC, which is the newest suite, so always the updated one. But all of this is boilerplate and fine, it's standard. So we'll just save. We don't want to create a PDF file. That just creates another file that we're going to create ourselves in a second. So don't have that ticked. And then we save, and it'll save it, and your thing's saved. You can keep saving it. Is everyone okay with this? Everyone seems okay. Great. But to actually put it into the folder for submission by the end of today, we're gonna go back to File, and then Save As. Gonna name it the same name, your name, Map. But we're gonna save it as a PDF, an Adobe PDF, and then save. Again, it comes up with a bunch of versions, a bunch of options, compatibility for different things. Don't worry too much about all of this. This is quite a standard thing we're creating. Here's an option. We can automatically pop the PDF up when you've saved it. You can click that if you want to have a look at it straight away. But this option, if you're creating something that's a presentation that's going to go on a website, what this does is it optimizes your images and your text and everything so that it loads quickly on the internet. It's useful, but for, say, a physical presentation, I don't know how many of those we're going to be doing because of everything, but for a physical presentation, you probably want it high resolution, good quality. So it's up to you whether you check that. It depends on the project that we're doing this for. We don't need that right now. It doesn't really change much. We've got no images in here that we're displaying specifically. So save the PDF, and then I had it checked that it pops open, and here's our PDF. And there it is. That's what I managed to create. That's good, isn't it? So that's our PDF. Should be here. And that's why we're doing it in a PDF format, because although it's not mega editable as having it as an Illustrator file that I can open in Illustrator, PDF is quite universal. If you have Adobe, which hardware comes with, computers come with, someone can open up the PDF and they can see that this is a text that you've created. These are elements and objects that you've created, and we can basically see that you've created these elements in a certain way, in a certain shape, and kind of using what techniques. So that's why we're doing it in a PDF today. Also, a PDF is able to be open in Illustrator, so I can go in and check how things are done and see your amazing work. So that's where we got up to last week, I believe, without going through the artboards, which is what we're going to go through in a second. Has everyone at least saved their work? You don't have to submit it now. It's just by the end of the day you can keep working on it, and I can help throughout the day to get anything resolved. Where's everyone at? Is everyone okay to have their work saved and then continue on to the next part? Is everyone still working?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, we've all been messaging, but like it has showed up on your screen. For whatever
Really?
reason. Yeah.
Not good.
It might be because you're on Do Not Disturb, it says at the top, but I don't know.
Shouldn't be. Presenting available. Thank you for letting me know. Set message available.
But yeah, there's been a few messages since you posted that link.
Okay.
So I don't know what's up.
I wonder why Do Not Disturb has popped up. Sorry about this, everyone. We'll get this sorted so I can see what's happening your side.
Hi.
Hi there.
Oh, yeah, I think maybe I should try to share my screen so you can see the messages that already came up.
Yes, please. That'll be very useful. I'm unsure why it's put me on Do Not Disturb all of a sudden.
Okay.
Thank you. Ah, I think Destiny just quit out of Teams by accident. There we go. Thank you, James. Is that who's active now?
Yeah, can you see that?
I can, yeah.
Okay.
It's
Should I
not an
scroll up
issue.
a bit?
That's all grand. Good here. I don't have to convert lines into shapes without great stuff, Luke. Where is it? We find these recorded sessions. Right now they're unable to be recorded by Teams, so I'm currently recording them on my laptop, and then I'm going to upload them onto an unlisted YouTube link, and then you can all find it there. So nothing will be public to anyone who doesn't have the link. Yeah. Should one of us... Yep. No messages. Let me try. Click share screen. That was weird. Great stuff. Yeah. I suddenly can't make lines. That's all good. I'll try and work through the issue with Destiny, and then we'll go through artboards. That's the main next step, especially onto moving on to the next brief, if that's okay with everyone. I haven't got the grey background on my map, so I'll take over the screen share again, and then hopefully this chat issue won't stay as an issue. Hopefully I'll be allowed to talk to you all again. So I'll take screenshot. Thanks again for screen sharing and getting that quickly solved. That was good problem solving from everyone. So that's that. Let's have a look. Have I got the chat back at all? I haven't, no. You haven't got the grey background. What may be the issue? Oh, do you mean this background? Potentially. What may be an option as well, if you need to reply to me, is in the actual chat option on Teams on the top left up here. That might be available. Unsure why this issue's occurred. Let's make me available once again. Can we do the whole map? So, what I think's best is I think we crack onto artboards, and then try and solve this issue towards the end, so that we can go through any questions, and I can help the people who needed help earlier on, who needed help getting everything set up as well. So we'll crack on through. Hopefully you've all still got me. Admittedly, what could be useful, because you are seeing mine, is if there's something that does quickly need to be pinged over, please just email it straight to there, and then I'll get it. Again, I'm unsure why this has happened, but we'll find a solution, a tech-based solution. So we should be about there, except the couple of issues. But Now we've got our maps saved as PDFs, we're going to go up to File and Save As. And we're going to create a second file, a second map file for the next brief. So that map, that Illustrator map that you had saved, keep that. That's the one that you're going to edit and submit later today, unless you've already submitted it. That's absolutely fine. But this next one will be map presentation. So don't worry, we're not actually presenting these. These will be, again, a proof that you can just create with this artboards function. We'll save it, and then we've got this new PDF. So we'll save it as well as the Illustrator file. So Jevon map presentation. Go to the bottom and save as Illustrator, and then we can keep editing it. Keep all the settings the same. And there we are. So I'm going to put into the chat the next brief. Actually, I'll upload it to. I'll make a link actually to the file that I uploaded for Luke to look over. We're on brief number 2. So here's the link. And I'll open it up here. So what we're going to go through is creating artboards. That allows us to create different pages. The white canvas that we've been creating on, that's just one single artboard at the dimensions that we set at the beginning. When we save it as a PDF or an image or whatever it is we're saving it as, it'll save it as that dimension, one artboard, one page, as 1080p. That's what we set it as. But in our artboards, we can actually create multiple and then change them in order as we have done with our assets on the right. So to do that, we need the artboard window, this window here. So if you don't have it, I'm going to go to Window, and we'll go down to Artboards. Mine's already ticked. If I tick it, it will disappear. So Window, Artboards. And then we've got our artboards. We've only got one artboard at the moment. If you click on your artboard, should pop up, never mind. But we have our one artboard here. To create another artboard, we'll click this square with a plus in it, and it creates a brand new artboard to the exact same dimensions, called artboard 2, hopefully, in position 2, and it's the same size. But now, when we save our artwork, when we save our file, and we'll save it as the PDF, because then we can pop it open. Save it as a PDF once we've got to. Now we've got page 1 and page 2. Page 1 and page 2. And that allows us to create clean and concise and well formatted presentations. So that's what we're going to move on to next. We're gonna cover that now, because how we're going to lay it out is we're going to have one page for the title, which will be Derby Maps and your name, and then the next page will be the original map that was supplied to you, and we'll place it here, and then we'll create another artboard which will be for our own custom map, and then there'll be a final artboard, 4 artboards. The 4th artboard will be for our next creation, which is going to use clipping masks, which I'm going to go through next. So the layout, just to be clear again, we'll have, and this generally is just to show and get a feel of a basic presentation format, just a title, and then go through the process of how we got to this final map using clipping masks and all the tools that we've used so far. So we want our original map here on artboard 2. When you click it, it changes to what artboard you're on, as it does in this asset hierarchy. So click there, artboard 1, artboard 2. We want our original map there, so we'll just bring it in, drag and drop. It's drag and dropped onto a window, so drag and drop in. It automatically knows which artboard it's on by how much of the object is on it. So if a little bit of it's on this artboard, it'll know that it still means to be on this one. If most of it's over here, oh, it's because that one's selected, sorry. It's not because it knows, it's because it's selected. If this one's selected and you drag it here, and you need to align it to the center, which we want to, there we are. And then we want our one that we created earlier. We can select all the elements from it by dragging the mouse over, and we'll just move it over. We'll just drag and drop the whole thing. Come on. Is there, because elements are locked. Drag and drop the whole thing into artboard 3. Artboard 3 is selected, and then we'll center that. Oh no, can't center that like that, because what that's trying to do is it's trying to select every asset and center each one to its own place. So what we can do is we can use these purple reference lines that pop up. If we move it around and it looks central, at the center there, we should get some pink lettering in the center. Let's say center, that means it's all centered. So now we have map 1 and map 2. Can you please go through how to what went on page 1 again? I've got the chat, that's very good. Let's ping it all back open the chat. Sure, so the artboard, to add a new one, how long ago was this? 2 minutes, that's fine. To add an artboard, we have the artboard window, so window, artboards, and then when you click this square at the bottom with a little plus in it, and that will create a brand new artboard in line with and at the same size as the preset. So this page or whichever page was first, it will create it in that. Page 1 is your title, so it'll be Derby map, creative endeavor, whatever, a relevant title really, and your name, something appropriate though. So I'll call mine, create a text, put it there, Derby map graphic design driven. Let's make it look a bit more presentable. Let's make it larger. Let's maybe put it there. So that'll be your title and your name. So that's how we're going to present the next. Well, that's how we're going to submit the next brief submission. We're not actually presenting it. Don't worry, that's not where we're at yet. Also, we've seen the process of how we all make this thing, so we don't need to. There's not much to present really. So we'll have our map. Our title, our original map, our new creative map, and our next map that we're going to create. And we're going to create that by, most likely, or you can start from scratch. We're going to take, actually I'll show you from scratch. So what we're going to do is these vectors that we've created for the map, we're not going to fill them with basic colors or blank colors. This, please do keep as concise and close to the original as possible. It's really to show that you understand the functions, this one. But the next one for submission as the 4th page of this will be a lot more artistic and free-flowing, and you can get some creative stuff moving with it. So instead of creating this block like this with just a green color to represent the grass, we'll have the map. I'll copy it and then paste it over here. We'll have our map of Derby, but we'll be filling, if you see fit, you'll be filling these areas with images, with assets that you've found and sourced yourself. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And what you do is you use a function called a clipping mask that uses the border, the outline of an object, of an asset, and turns that into a mask. That masks whatever's behind it into it, so it becomes a sort of viewing port into an image or whatever it is that we're using for it. So a quick example, there's this wonderful website called Pexels. There's loads of websites like it. What it does is it has loads of free videos and images that you can just use. They have no copyright, they have no royalty. The artists, like, if you sort of share them or compensate them, but this is for education, so we're absolutely free. So I'll just get an image of a beach again. On this final one for next week's submission, it's completely up to you what you create and how you create it. So you find one that you like. Again, source them however you'd like to source them from whichever site, as long as it's responsible, and then we'll just download the image if it wants to download for me. I'll just take it, but it won't be very high res, but that's fine. Once you have your image, whatever image it might be, whatever you've downloaded or sourced. By the way, it can be your own work as well. You can use this as a sort of expose of your own work in the map of Derby and get a bit creative with it. But we have our image and we can just drag and drop it in just like the map. And then we place it over the top of our grassy area if we want that area to be the mask. So now we've got our image, we're going to make a clipping mask for it. So we find the layer that it is. It's here, I can see that it's here, and it needs to be below this one. This needs to sit on top of it to create this. So grab this, the one that you want to make the clipping mask with. Here, it's this one, we can see it's lit up there, and we're going to drag it above that one. So now it's definitely on top. If we put it over it, it's literally over it. So now we're there. Hopefully everyone's there, and I've just not all of a sudden stopped being able to see messages again. Should be quite annoying. Hopefully everyone's there. Then we select our object, and then we select our image with shift. So we have this one selected, hold shift, click the image, and that means we have them both selected. You can see that because it's still got a green line around the original one. So again, this one, hold shift, image, and once they're both selected, you click one of them, right click, and then make clipping mask, and then the ocean or whatever your image is inside that grassy area. So then you can start getting creative with it. You can create your vectors and your images and then turn them into a more artistic piece of work. So this is what it should end up looking like for the file next Wednesday. If you're wondering how to get the map that you're making today into this new file, if you're making changes to this after saving this, you can just open up the original. So programs, find my original. This is my presentation one. This is my original. Is that my original? Yeah, so that's my original one, and you can, once it's finished, copy it. You can Command C on all of it, or Control C if you're on Windows, all of it, or you can select it all and then go to Edit and Copy, and that'll just copy it for you, and then paste it into the presentation. So today we'll see a bunch of PDFs of this in the folder up here, and then I'll create a new folder closer to the time for submission of these presentation PDFs. So that's what we're going to go through, and I hope everyone's clear on the PDFs. Again, very sorry that the whole chat issue happened, and I'm unsure if it's still happening because there's no messages. Hopefully you can all hear me, otherwise it's a bit of an issue.
I could ask what goes on page 4. That's the only message really.
What goes on page 4 is the next map, really. Is the next map being created with the clipping masks. So we can get all creative with it and then put that onto page 4, and then that's the final, that's the full set. We can see the title, the original map, our progress and proof that we can do all the functions, and then some creative license, getting creative with what we can make. So that's there.
Luke's just asked, are we saving the artboard work as a PDF as well?
Yes, save them all as PDF, but also save them as Illustrator, the AI file. The PDF is for the submission, the AI file is so that you can edit it later on, so just make sure both are created there.
Goncala asks, when do we submit the map? Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong as well.
That's alright. The first map, this one, the basic one that you've probably created today, submit that at any point today into the file, into the folder here. Any point today before 6, and this new presentation one, submit that. I'll create a new folder for that, but submit that before 6 o'clock next Wednesday. This is the brief for it that's also now on files. So it goes through the deliverables, a PDF format, 1920 by 1080 pack, including artboards for the title, one for the original map, one for the first map we created, and one for the second map using clipping masks. That's what we're going for, and this here is the deadline. So that's the brief.
Matt says as well, do we have to complete the whole map or just parts of it?
Just parts of it to show that we've got the main functions in. Really, I want to be able to see that all the functions we've gone through are in there and being used and understood. Yeah.
Then Augusta has said, at the moment I can't get my hands on my PC. I won't be able to send it. Is it possible to extend the deadline?
Yeah, we can talk about that in a chat afterwards to figure out what the problem is and where to go after this call. Yeah. Has anyone got any issues with the clipping masks and creating those and sourcing images, and any worries about sourcing images and where to get them from?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Right. The clipping mask, when I select on the grass, for example, and then I try and create a clipping mask, it's just going back on, it's just turning grey into the background. Do I have to get rid of the background to then create a clipping mask?
Do you have to get rid of the background to create a clipping mask? You shouldn't have to. Is the grass on top of the object that you're trying to create a clipping mask with?
Yeah.
So, would you be able to share your screen so I can see what's happening? Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Oh, can you see it?
I can.
Ah, cool. Okay. So I've clicked like two of the grass, and I make clipping mask, and then it just turns to grey.
That's because you're doing two at once. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. You have to own unless they're one object. I believe you like one compound path. You have to do one after the other.
Oh, so I have to. Oh, okay. So.
Yeah. Selection must contain one object. I don't think you had the image selected there on that one. You've got to select on the grass. Sorry,
The photo of the grass.
on the grass that you've created.
Okay, yeah.
And then hold shift and then select the image. So then you've got them both selected. Perfect. That blue border around the grass you've created shows that we've got that as well. And then right click and then create. There you go.
Okay. All right, that's cool. Thank you.
Rock and roll.
How do I stop sharing?
There
Okay.
should be, just the little square.
Thank you.
All good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have to create like every single little road, or is it just the main roads and the roundabout on there?
Just the main roads, roundabouts to show that you can get the curves, but yeah, just make it as concise and close as possible as you can.
Okay, sweet. Cheers.
All good.
And there's nothing due today? Just 14?
The PDF for the PDF of the map that we've created today, that's for submission today, but not the stuff that I went through at the end. Not this full 4-piece one. This fourth one is for next week in this format. But this original one, by 6 p.m. today.
Okay.
Yeah, all good. Any more questions?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Cool.
I
Let
think
me turn
two.
down the volume, I'm thinking. So, so this is Luke. It might be easier if I share my thing.
Sure.
Hang on, how do I do this?
In the centre there should be a wee share desktop option on Teams.
Okay, I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that?
Nearly. It'll probably pop up in a minute because Teams likes to take its time. I can see that.
Right. So someone suggested that they were having difficulty with the shapes.
Mm-hmm.
I figured out a shortcut.
Go ahead.
So you can select multiple shapes if you do want to clip them all together. And then if you go onto Object and Compound Path and then Make, then it turns those individual shapes into one shape in effect. And then when you do your clipping mask, you don't have to do it multiple times for each individual shape.
Yeah.
So that's how I did mine.
Great
So
stuff.
I've got, let me drag it, it's quicker. So, yeah, I did all my clipping masks and
Awesome.
it when you do the compound paths, it takes like 15 minutes. If you did them all individually, it'd take forever.
Yeah.
And the lines that I did for my roads, if you select your lines together, and then if you go on object and where is it? It's outline. Where's outline? No, it's path. There you go. Path, and then outline stroke. I've already done it, so I can't do it now. But basically, if you've got a line that's got weight to it, and you want that to be a shape instead of it being just a line, then if you do this, it turns it into a shape with the same path and border and everything. And then you can do the clipping mask. If you leave it as a line, you can't do the clipping mask.
Amazing, great stuff. Yeah.
Right, I'm going to go quiet now.
Okay, that looks brilliant, by the way. That looks great.
Hi.
Hi there.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask, where can we find the recording of this session?
Unfortunately, I still can't record it on Teams, and that would make it available straight after this on Teams. But what I'm doing is recording it, and then I'll put it onto a YouTube link. But it won't be visible to anyone who doesn't have the link for it. So shortly after this, I'll upload it there, and then it'll be available there.
Okay, great, thanks.
Sure. Good to hear, everyone. That's good. But now it's very quiet. Is everyone quite okay? Then cracking on to submit today for 6, and then cracking on to submit for next Wednesday. What I'll do is I'll supply a link to the PDF that I uploaded. That is the PDF. So what I think now, because it's gone quite quiet, is I think I'll go through the issues everyone had at the start, or anyone had at the start, with getting set up with Adobe Suite, and I'll get the screen recording of this cleared off and uploaded for anyone who needs it. If anyone else needs any help right now, please let me know, and we'll go through those issues that you have. Any software issues or anything, any issues with the brief or anything. If not, that's all that we're going to go through today, other than any issues. So feel free to crack on, and yeah. Who was it that was having any issues? Yeah, that too. If everyone's okay, just cracking on, and you don't have any more questions, feel free to leave the chat. That's absolutely fine as well. Thank you for coming, and I hope we got through everything well and solid your side. Sorry again for the issue with the chat, but we'll have it resolved real quick, and I'll get back with the recording of all this very soon.
Tristan says, is it alright for him to start once he gets his Mac? Because he's getting it in like a few weeks. He hasn't arrived.
I believe so, because he has no other way to work on this essentially. As long as he feels like he's going to be okay. Yeah, I'll talk to you now, Tristan. As long as you feel like you're going to be okay catching up with these and getting the submissions in, and you feel confident having watched all of this and going through tutorials and everything, then that should be okay, because you are currently without the technology to do it. We can have a chat in the actual chat window though about potentially getting you onto a machine at the university. That should be possible really, but we'll have a chat after this. Do ping if anyone else has any issues, any more questions. Charlie, yours wasn't letting you download the Creative Cloud? Is that something that was still going on through this? Or did we get a message saying it's been resolved? Everything?
He's just said he's got his own Creative Cloud account, so he's tried signing out of that and logging into the uni one instead.
Okay. Yeah, once you're all in, it shouldn't take too much to get everything up and running, and then yeah, by 6 today, I'm sorry you might be a bit behind on it, but yeah, you should be okay for the 6 p.m. submission of your original map, and then you've got till next Wednesday to get your head around the artboards and clipping masks and everything. So hopefully that's all okay your side. Hopefully it gets sorted. I hope it all gets sorted for you. Who else was having an issue as well? Hannah May. Is Hannah May still in the chat? Where's Hannah May gone? Have a chat with her after this then.
Ali says, what is the title for the first artboard as well?
The title really can just be Derby Map or My Creative Derby Map Journey, just something relevant and appropriate, and your full name, maybe graphic design as well, so that we can reference it in future. Really, this is to show that we're starting to understand how to get the presentation set out, and that's how our presentation should really start when it's in this format. So something relevant and appropriate, and yeah, something that looks good. Well, with graphic designers, we'll know what looks good.